Well, what a day it's already been in fantasy football. I mean, we've got way too many injuries to count at this point. It's really a bummer because, in particular with the Trey Benson one, I know there's been a lot of injuries already, right? Like Malik Neighbors is down, Joe Burrow's down, basically effectively ending both Bengals wide receivers and Chase Brown's upside. You know, we've got other guys like Tyreek Hill who just broke his leg. I mean, it's just, there's so many different things that have happened in fantasy football so far. But I will tell you, the Trey Benson one, that one hurts particularly, mostly because of the fact that I drafted this guy most out of any player this year. I have so much of Trey Benson on every redraft team I've got him, on every dynasty team I've got him, and I drafted a ton of this guy on best ball teams. So it's not like I'm getting away with this one very clean. So that one's a real bummer. And obviously there's going to be a lot of start-sit questions related to Michael Carter and Emar DeMercado over the next couple days. Well, I wish it was only just Trey Benson because that would make everybody's life a lot easier. But, of course, that's not the only case. Bucky Irving is also down as well. So I said this on my running back rankings video today, which is that last night I was making these rankings, right? And that was before we knew that he showed up to practice today in a walking boot and he was also on crutches. So I already knew that based off of what we saw yesterday, and what we saw yesterday was a report that he was getting multiple opinions on his injury. So I already knew based off that, like, anytime I've heard of a player getting multiple opinions on their injury, it's not a good thing, and it typically means they will not play in the following week of fantasy football. So I already had him lower ranked. So that one's a little easier, I guess, and that backfield is really good. So it's tough, though, man. It really is a tough week so far. We've already got most 49ers players down, of course. George Kittle is still down, Ricky Pearsall down, and Juwan Jennings down, and Brock Purdy down. So there's a lot of injuries this week. Good news is that Jaden Daniels is coming back this week. We've got some other players that could really step up. And I can't stress this enough before I get into questions here. The most important thing at this time of the year is to just continue to fight. Because the bottom line is that you could either curl up in a ball in the fetal position, wave the white flag of surrender, but who wants to do that? Go out there and fight. I mean, everybody's dealing with injuries to a certain extent in your league. Maybe you're getting it the worst, or maybe there's other people in your league who haven't dealt with it at all. I mean, what are you going to do? Just quit? That's lame. So don't be a quitter. You got to continue to fight. But before we go through some questions tonight, I do want to address a couple things. So obviously there's going to be tons of questions about Rachaad White, Sean Tucker in the Tampa Bay backfield, and Emar DeMercado and Michael Carter in the Arizona backfield. What I would tell you to do is go create a start-sit poll, especially if you don't get your question answered here tonight. On FS Roundup, it's completely free to do this, by the way. Nobody else does this either. Like, we're very unique on this site. So we've created start-sit polls. You can get live updates on the results. You can kind of see them right now. And it's a great way to engage and get other people's opinions on your decisions and go help out other people as well. Again, this is completely free. I do give team breakdowns. You guys need to give me a little bit of time on the team breakdowns. I've gotten a lot more than I expected to get, so I am behind working against the clock with these team breakdowns. So that only happens after you become an official paying customer and your 12-day free trial is over. So once your payment is sent through, then that's when I provide the team breakdowns. But yeah, I mean, it's a big week. And then there's also another great feature here, which I haven't really gone through much. You can actually hook up your ESPN or Yahoo League to the site, and it will provide you like real updates on like where I rank these guys, where they stand against top performers in your league. It's a lot of cool stuff on the site. FS Roundup, we're brand new, and it's crushing it right now. We're crushing it. You guys are loving it. If there's anything else you want to add, feel free to let me know. But let's get into some questions because that's what y'all are here for. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. So our Junk Buster, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Nick Sekme, I might have just butchered your name, but what's going on? Do I start White or Michael Carter? So we'll get right into those questions. Listen, I really like the Tampa Bay backfield more for upside in fantasy football, not only this week, but moving forward as well. The Tampa Bay's offense is just a better offense and one that you can rely on for more fantasy points. Now, they're going up against the Seahawks this week, which I think is just a terrible matchup and one you would typically want to stay away from. But, obviously Tampa running backs can't be taken out of the equation. So you saw where I ranked Rachaad White today, my running back rankings. Well, that was with the knowledge that Bucky Irving probably is going to miss this game because he was on crutches in a walking boot today. So we're probably not going to get him, and I kind of assumed that in my rankings today. Now, of course, by the time I was getting my rankings out to you, I had gotten the news, but my rankings weren't updated for Trey Benson's situation. So a lot of people are wondering where Michael Carter and Amari DiMercato fall in the Arizona backfield in my rankings this week. Listen, my thing with this is that Trey Benson definitely leaves a void, and I think that it won't be made up by just one of them. Both those guys are going to be relevant. I think that there's a real argument that, especially when you factor in last year, what we saw is that this backfield will be split, and Michael Carter, if last year's any indication, he probably will be the majority leader out of the work in the backfield as far as carries. Now, DiMercato is going to definitely play a role, particularly as a receiving back, and I'm just not convinced that Michael Carter is a great option. Don't get me wrong, this matchup's really good. That's why I was really big on Trey Benson this week, and it's a huge bummer he's not going to play. But it doesn't mean that I'm automatically in on these Arizona backs. For me personally, I would rather take the shot on Rachaad White this week in particular because we just don't know enough about this Arizona backfield, and Tampa's offense just provides more upside on a weekly basis. So I will go with Rachaad White. Jose Valadez, what's going on? What do you think about Waddle? Well, it's been an interesting year for me with Jalen Waddle because Jalen Waddle has been a guy that I loved, particularly before the season started. And it's been disappointing. He hasn't been the guy that I thought he was going to be, which I called him a top 15, top 10 upside wide receiver. And so for his price, I was all big on him, and I got him in every redraft league. I got him in tons of best ball leagues. I drafted a ton of Jalen Waddle. Now, the problem became that it didn't go exactly how I thought. Tyreek was the wide receiver one, but obviously now Tyreek goes down, and it's where do I actually stand? Well, here's where I stand on Waddle today. So you can just kind of look over the past, we'll go through every week of the season. But in week 4 versus the Jets, a bad defense that they pretty much killed. Tyreek Hill as the wide receiver one, even though he left early in that game, 6 catches for 67 yards. Jalen Waddle, 3 catches for 48. So what that shows me, and we'll go through this week by week, is that Waddle was being used down the field more, which is encouraging because as we're going to go through, in week 3, for example, Waddle got in the end zone in that game, but he had 5 catches for 40 yards. And if you recall that Thursday night game against the Bills, that was a game that they didn't use anybody down the field except Tyreek Hill, who got 49 catches in that game, and that wasn't even very good. So this team just isn't really much of a downfield throwing team as much as we would like them to be, and for fantasy football purposes, that's not ideal. Now, week 2, Waddle had 5 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown, but Tyreek had 109 yards on 6 catches. So my point being is this. Going through all these weeks right here, right? Tua is not pushing the ball down the field. And I don't think it's just on Tua. Don't get it twisted. I do think that someone like Mike McDaniel is a big reason why they don't scheme that many plays down the field as well. He's more of a, at the line of scrimmage type of guy. So Waddle realistically, his upside, of course, is higher without Tyreek Hill there. And Waddle, I do think, is a legitimate, deep threat who has speed. It's just I don't think Tua can always hit on those plays because his arm's not that strong. So I like Waddle better for sure. And it does, do my preseason analysis, give it a boost. because Tyreek Hill is no longer there. But at the same time, do I think Waddle's a top 15 guy? No. I think he's probably somewhere realistically in that top 20 to 25 range. Like, that's kind of how I'm feeling about Waddle right now. I would love to be pleasantly surprised. I really would. So, very interesting to see what happens. But as of right now, I don't think I could rank him much higher than 20. Michael Merowitz, appreciate the super chat. Niners injuries killing me. Fix Dowdle if Chuba hurt or Chase Brown. DeMercado, Keon, or Pollard start 3. Sutton, Pickens, Etienne, Egbuka, Woody, and Godwin. And you said, forgot to put this one in, Tonjes or Henry. Well, we can answer that one really quick because, on the surface, it seems like an easy answer. I will say, though, I do think that San Francisco is going to have to utilize their tight ends because they have nothing. I mean, Ricky Pearsall has already been ruled out. Jawan Jennings has already been ruled out. Brock Purdy's been ruled out, so that means it's going to be Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, and these 2 tight ends who, the tough thing with Tonjes is that Tonjes is in this position to where, yes, he has outsnapped Luke Farrell, I think, for 2 weeks straight now, but Luke Farrell's still involved, even in the passing game. And I've always said this, I don't like 2 tight end sets. Unless we're talking about, like, some really good, like, tight end room where both of them are really good, like Baltimore's last year, for example. That was fine. But this is not that situation. I mean, Jake Tonjes is just not as good as Isaiah Likely. So it's tough for me to put him over a player like Hunter Henry because Hunter Henry is dominating the tight end room over in New England. I mean, yes, Austin Hooper is getting snaps, but I mean, as far as pass catching work goes, it's Hunter Henry easily. So it's hard for me to not do that and just go with Hunter Henry. So I will do that because they're going to be down in this game, I would bet. They're going to have to throw to catch up with Buffalo. So I'll go with Hunter Henry. And, Niners injuries are definitely bad for sure. Flex Dowdle if Chuba is hurt or Chase Brown. Is Chuba hurt? Let me see. Oh, yeah, I guess he did not practice today. It's funny, I was checking my lineup. I have him in a Dynasty League, and I was checking my lineup earlier today, and I didn't see any, news report on Chuba, so I just assumed up to this point that he was healthy. So, calf injury, didn't practice today, considered day-to-day, which is usually a better sign. Like, if we heard week to week, then that'd be a real problem. But if you're asking in the event that Chuba doesn't go, will you play Dowdle or Chase Brown? That's a legitimate question. I mean, if he doesn't go, then Rico Dowdle will be that lead back. Now, I wouldn't put it past Carolina to use Trevor Etienne. I mean, they did use him some the other day, but that was a beatdown. So, in all likelihood, Rico Dowdle will be the guy. And I do think the matchup is great. I mean, the matchup, they take on the Miami Dolphins, yeah. So, yeah, I don't see a world where Rico is a bad play based on matchup if Chuba is out. The question really becomes down to Chase Brown. Can we play him this week? And the matchup is brutal. I mean, they're taking on the Detroit Lions, and I just can't realistically, because I've been telling you guys for the past couple of weeks, they won't look as bad as they looked against the Vikings, but they will against the Broncos look that bad, and they did. Like they can't move the ball, and they can't run. That's for sure. So it's really going to take like a weaker matchup for them to be able to play better. And this isn't the week. Like the Detroit Lions, it's another really, really poor matchup. So it's tough for me to tell you to play Chase Brown right now, even though he's getting the volume by a lot. Like it's not worth anything. You know what's funny is that I've been ragging on Tony Pollard because that guy gets all the volume in Tennessee, and I just don't think he's that good of a player. But the reality is, I'd play Tony Pollard easily over Chase Brown right now because they're both seeing the volume. But Chase Brown, this offense literally can't move the ball. They cannot run the ball. That's for sure. So I'll probably go with Dowdle if Chuba is hurt. DeMercado, Keon, or Pollard. So basically it comes down to where do I have DeMercado ranked, right? And I did tell people, if you are a premium subscriber on FS Roundup, you may have seen my rankings update today. I did provide a ranking update on Emari DeMercado. In fact, I'll give you a little sneak peek of what's behind the scenes with my rankings. So my rankings, they do have DeMercado right behind Woody Marks, but Tony Pollard's up in front. Now, that's all you guys are going to get. So if you want to see the full top 200 plus this week, because there's some bye weeks, join FS Roundup, subscribe to the premium subscription, and become a customer over there. Really helps me out as a channel, really helps us out as a site. It's a great way to support. But I just wanted to give you a little taste because obviously Emari DeMercado is inside my top 30. So, it's a funny situation because Tony Pollard, I was just saying it's a bad offense that doesn't move the ball well, and I don't think that he's much good. But I mean, Emari DeMercado, I was just saying earlier, the problem is not that he won't get work. It's what will the breakdown look like, and I don't know. I don't know what the breakdown is going to look like. My guess is that DeMercado is not the 3-down back there. So at least with Pollard, you get 3-down back upside. So I'll take Pollard over DeMercado for sure, and I'll take Pollard over Keon. Because Keon Coleman, realistically, all we've seen so far is week 1. That's it. I mean, there's just not, what else can you do besides keep him on your bench for now? Because it's not like this is good. I would be shocked. Maybe. Because usually in, primetime standalone games, they're not blowouts unless the other team sucks. Like the Cincinnati Bengals, for example. They suck right now. They suck without Joe Burrow. So it's not like they can realistically put up a fight against a brutally tough defense, the Denver Broncos. But, I mean, we saw with Dallas and Green Bay the other night. Dallas, by all accounts, most people thought that they were going to get killed. Well, they didn't because it was a Sunday night standalone game, and they didn't want to look bad. I mean, teams do show up better on a Sunday night game, and the Patriots aren't even a bad team. So, there's a realistic chance that it's a competitive matchup. But, I mean, they were in one last week with the Saints, actually, and Keon Coleman still didn't do anything. So, I'm going to play Pollard over Keon, and then start 3 Sutton, Pickens, Etienne, Egbuka, Woody, and Godwin. I would go with Pickens for sure. He's in my top 3 this week. I'd go with Egbuka. He's in my top 10. And really the question, I like Godwin. I like Woody. These are all, serious questions. But they're not on the same level as Sutton and Etienne. They just haven't provided that much upside this year. So I'm going to rule those 2 guys out. So it's really between Sutton and Etienne. And I don't like either matchup. And I do think this could be one of those games for Sutton where he kind of disappears. Because, that is the problem with Sutton. 3 out of the 4 games for Sutton have been really good. I mean, the good thing with Sutton is that if he does hit, he's going to do well. And always he's going to get in the end zone. So 3 out of the 4 games he has done really well. But, the Eagles are a tough matchup. And I can't see them letting Sutton beat them in the passing game. So I do think it's one of those games that he could get shut down. Now, on the other end, I've said a lot this week that I think that Etienne is going to have a bad week because I think the Jags are going to have a bad week. So it comes down to 2 players that I don't think are going to be really great this week. I think that where I stand with Etienne is that Etienne is a guy that has proven this year that it's working. It really is working with Jacksonville and Liam Cohen, who almost got his butt kicked by Robert Saleh on Sunday. But, I mean, Travis Etienne is a guy that I think is realistically a fine fantasy player regardless of matchup because he's been proven to be good and effective. They can move the ball against tougher defenses, which San Francisco is even with all their injuries. So I'll go with Travis Etienne as my last option. Appreciate the super chat. That is how you jump the line. You could send in a super chat to jump the line and get your question answered immediately. Michael, really appreciate the super chat. Esteban Simon, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Would you trade Etienne and Javonte for Jonathan Taylor? My running backs are Hampton, Javonte, Etienne. My wide receivers are Puka, London, A.J. Brown, and Jacoby. So your running backs are Hampton, Javonte, and Etienne, and you want to send both of them away for Jonathan Taylor. So essentially what you would do, in theory, is you would make your running back room pretty immortal. I mean, it really would become like one of those running back rooms that has top 5 upside for both running backs. Whereas right now, like realistically, you do have 2 really good running backs, but I would not consider them either top 5 moving forward. And I did see a question that I wanted to address, which is that could I make a running back rankings rest of season video? That will be coming out this week, so stay tuned. I've already actually got those rankings ready. I just need to I need to make the video about it, so stay tuned for that video because it will come out this week, next couple days. But the point me bringing that up here is because, you know, I've got Javonte pretty well ranked in those rankings. Like, I really do think what we're seeing is pretty real. I mean, I'm one of those guys that's like, you know, I think that what we've seen from Javonte Williams at the beginning of the season, it was like Jalen Carter didn't play in that first game, that season opener. So it was like, it's hard for me to know realistically what that was. Then he came out in week 2 against, who do they play? Week 2, they played the Giants. Then Javonte did really well again. Then it's like, okay, well, what about week 3? Then he plays the Bears. They get crushed, and he still has a relatively decent day in fantasy. And then obviously they played the Packers really well. So at this point, I'm one of those guys that likes to kind of let a quarter of the season go by before I make drastic changes. Javonte did drastically rise up for me. Now, Etienne, on the other hand, I actually worry a little bit, to tell you the truth, and to give you kind of a sneak peek of my rest of season running back rankings. I actually have a little bit more concern for Etienne moving forward than I do with Javonte, because Etienne, this guy, yes, like he has been, it's working, as I just said. But this guy was not drafted by this coaching staff or the GM. I mean, everybody's new there in Jacksonville. So it's not inconceivable for them to move off of him still. Not move off of him. I don't think they'll trade him at this point because they already traded Tank Bigsby. But, I mean, Bashal Tutin could easily get more involved as the season goes. So I actually have got more concern with Etienne moving forward than I do with Javonte. I think that your wide receiver room, like you've got Puka, London, and A.J. Brown and Jacoby Myers. Look, I mean, the bottom line is that you will take a hit from your flex position if you do this trade. But realistically, like your 2 running backs are going to be, I mean, unless there's an injury, immortal. I mean, those 2 running back slots are going to give you 20-plus points on a weekly basis, you could basically expect. So I'm inclined to do this deal. Yeah, I'm inclined to do this deal. Because I just think it's one of those moves that you'll look back on if you don't do it and say, why did I not just go for it? Because Etienne and Javonte, I like them both, but realistically, they're not in that category. So if they start performing bad, it's like, well, you're going to really look back on that and be like, I should have done that move. So I would do that trade. Appreciate the super chat. Brandon Dorcas, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. 10-team PPR, 2 flex. Wide receivers are CD, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ladd, QJ, and Sutton. Running backs are K9, Brown, Harvey, Charbonnet. Get Jamar and Bucky for Sutton, QJ, and K9. That's too much, right? I just need running back help long-term and hate having 2 Charger wide receivers. Yeah, so your 2 Charger wide receivers, one of them's really good right now. The other one's not doing anything. And one of them costs a lot to get, and he's the one who's not doing anything. So I get not wanting to have 2 Chargers wide receivers. But I will tell you this, like I don't think that I'm not at this position to where it's like, yeah, you got to get rid of one of them. Because Ladd obviously he's undervalued right now in my opinion. And I've been saying this, like, obviously he's dropped in my rankings because it's just not been there, the production. But, I mean, realistically, I go through this every week, it feels like. I mean, if you just look at bottom line metrics, which again, all these are free on FS Roundup, use this site because this provides very big material for free. Obviously, there's more advanced stuff behind the paywall, and it supports me. It helps support me big time and the site in general. But like, this stuff is for free. You can utilize this and what I always call bottom line metrics for wide receivers, which are snap counts and routes run. You need to be on the field, and when you're on the field, you need to be running routes. Ladd has led the team in routes run every week, and he's up there with QJ as the most important wide receiver as far as snaps. The breakout will happen. So, yes, Ladd is very undervalued. QJ, on the other hand, of course, you can't help but to think that he's being overvalued right now, and it will come crashing down because that's all we've known from QJ throughout his career. But that being said, like, I don't think that it's like one of those sell high moments. I really don't, because like we just don't know how this is going to go. And I would hate to look back on this and have you trade QJ and him be a top 15 wide receiver this year in fantasy, because I think it's possible. So I don't think it's like the worst move to get a guy like Jamar Chase back for him, because Jamar Chase obviously is, really undervalued right now. People don't know what to do with him. And like I said with Chase Brown, they're just not going to be a team that you can trust until they play a mediocre matchup. Like, anytime they're playing a defense like they've played the last 2 weeks and they play this week versus the Lions, like, it's going to look bad. But Jamar Chase is still a top-tier player, and they will get him the ball. So, like, I find it hard to believe that Jamar Chase won't pop off, but obviously he's just not as steady of a start as QJ. And then in addition to QJ, you're giving up Sutton, who I think is way more sustainable than Jamar Chase. I've got him ranked higher in my rest of season rankings. And K9 as well. Well, if Bucky wasn't hurt right now, I'd be much more inclined to take this deal. But since Bucky is hurt right now and we don't know what the future looks like, there's no way I'm pulling the trigger on this right now. There's just no freaking way. If Bucky was not hurt and there was not a conversation ongoing about what his timeline is like, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know what to say, because right now there's no way I'm trading for Bucky Irving. This could be an IR deal. I mean, we don't know enough yet. So I'm not trading for a player like that, especially giving up all those assets. That is just way too much. I get it. You want running back help, but Bucky's definitely not getting you that running back help. I mean, you're better off sticking with K9 right now, and I get it. Like, K9 is not my favorite right now because he's still splitting the backfield, but I do like K9, the player, quite a bit, and he's on the field. So, I mean, it's just not. And by the way, you don't want two Bengals. Like, you were just saying to me, you don't want two Chargers wide receivers. Well, I can tell you this: I'd rather have two Chargers wide receivers, albeit that Ladd McConkey's not playing well right now. I'd rather have that than having two Bengals. So there's just no way I'm taking that trade. Appreciate the super chat. Dr. Boom, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Trade Zay, Godwin, or Pearsall for Kyron Williams. Okay, so it's not a package deal. So realistically, like, that's not a one-for-one trade wide receiver-wise. Not the worst idea. So starting out with Zay, the big factor obviously is going to be what Lamar's situation is. And, before I get into Lamar's injury, realistically, like, if we look at last week, Lamar Jackson didn't play basically all the fourth quarter, and Zay Flowers, ironically, like, started performing more when Lamar left the game. So I'm not sure if there's like a huge drop off. Obviously, upside wise, Zay's upside and his ceiling is higher when Lamar is there, but I don't think that his floor is lower. Like, I actually am kind of curious if his floor is going to be higher, because they did target him a bunch when Cooper Rush came into the game. So when it comes to Lamar, Lamar Jackson, I read that he is out for potentially 2 to 3 weeks. So, it's not one of those quick turnarounds potentially. And Lamar uses his legs so much that it makes sense. So, again, with Zay, like, I don't feel like his floor is lower. I actually think there's an argument to be made his floor could be higher, but there's no argument about his ceiling. Now, with Godwin, I think that people are really it's not overinflating because he didn't do anything in fantasy football last week, but people saw the target share, right? Like, everybody saw 10 targets for Chris Godwin this past week. And so there's definitely a faction of the fantasy community that's like calling him a buy low. And to an extent, I agree. But I will also say that I think that Chris Godwin, we just don't know based off last week whether it's actually going to be a good year for him or not. Just because he got 10 targets doesn't mean he's going to be good on them. I mean, we don't know that. So, like, Chris Godwin, a little bit of a riskier move. I think I would do that for Kyren Williams before I would do it for Zay Flowers. I really do believe that because I think Zay is still one of those guys I don't think we've seen the best of yet. Maybe I'm just, like, being ridiculous because I was really big on Zay during the pre-draft process, but I'm not ready to move off Zay quite yet. If one of those guys I'm not as big on, I could get Kyren for. And I feel like Chris Godwin might be one of those guys that I would try to trade before trading Zay. Now, Ricky's the tough one because Ricky Pearsall, if he was healthy, and especially if Brock Purdy was healthy too, I would say Ricky Pearsall is not a guy I would want to move. I do think that we are seeing a Ricky Pearsall breakout robbed from us because of the injuries, though. Because it's not just him. Like I just said, Brock Purdy is in and out of the lineup right now. He's out again this week, and Ricky Pearsall is out as well. So, like, Ricky Pearsall has looked really good on a per-touch basis. Like, every opportunity the guy's had, he looks good. But as it goes in San Francisco, they're all injured. And you can't realistically count on any of them to come back from their injuries and stay back. I mean, that's just not the reality that we've seen over the years from San Francisco players. So I'm more likely to trade Ricky Pearsall for Kyren Williams. But I'll be honest with you, like, I'm not sure if any of these deals get done. Because the one thing with Kyren is that Kyren Williams is a guy that, yes, he hasn't been the best in fantasy this year, but he has been efficient on the ground. And also, he's getting still a pretty good workload. Like, Blake Corum, yes, he's taking work away, and some of it is at the end zone. But Kyren Williams being on an offense like that, I kind of think it's hard to trade for him with those options. But I will say this, all of them I would do the deal for, but I would definitely start with Godwin. And if they don't take that, I would try Ricky before I tried Zay. And if it was Zay that they're interested in, I would probably still do it. But I would definitely try it with Godwin and Ricky first. Because I want Kyren compared to those options. But I'll be honest here, I'm not sure it will go through. Unless they don't know what they're doing or unless they just want to move off of Kyren. Appreciate the super chat. Matt Donovan, appreciate the super chat. Knicks or Kyler this week? And if Hubbard is out, start Pollard or ETN. Okay, let's start out with Bo Nix and Kyler. So Bo Nix this week plays the Eagles. I really don't like that matchup. And I'll provide, some context for you. I've got a situation where I've got him in a dynasty league. Jordan Love, I also have him. He's on a bye week. So, normally in dynasty leagues, I don't like to hold three quarterbacks. Unless it's a deep league. This is not a deep dynasty league. It's actually a really shallow dynasty league with 6 or 7 bench spots, I think. It's not deep. So I don't usually hold three quarterbacks, but I actually am right now because of Justin Fields. Justin Fields is my third quarterback, and I kind of was just holding him. I'm just giving you my backstory with this. I'm holding Justin Fields because of the fact that I wanted to use him as trade bait at some point. But this week, I'm planning on starting Fields over Bo Nix. Because I said this, on earlier in the week. I think that Bo Nix still looks funky to me. It still doesn't feel right. I get it, whatever. He just ripped up the Bengals. Who cares? The Bengals suck. Like, anybody who's gloating and acting like Bo Nix is the next coming because of the performance against the Bengals, I mean, you're just, like, that's so low-hanging fruit. Like, it's so low-hanging. He just doesn't look right. He missed throws that night. Like, I saw that. So, Bo Nix, I'm still, like, not fully on board with Bo yet. Kyler this week is coming off a long week and gets to play the Carolina Panthers. So, or not the Panthers. Who are the Cardinals playing? The Titans, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I love the matchup. I mean, the matchup's really good. And again, Kyler off a long week. I like that opportunity. I'll play Kyler over Bo this week because I don't trust Bo right now. And I definitely don't trust him against the Eagles. So I'll take Bo, or I'll take Kyler in this game. And if Hubbard is out, start Pollard or ETN. That's an easy ETN for me, only because of the fact that ETN is actually on a good functional offense. Pollard, you just can't trust enough because of the offense. And I mean, I keep saying this, and people are fighting me less and less on this because I think it's kind of hard to defend at this point. Like, I don't think Pollard's that good of a player, even if he was on a better offense. Of course, he would look better, but realistically right now, Travis Etienne, I think, is the better play, like by all accounts. So I'll go Etienne, and I will go with Kyler. Appreciate the super chat. Sandwicko, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Michael Carter or Travis Hunter for week 5? You know, I think that Travis Hunter has been so bad, and it's not necessarily performance. Like, he has not done anything, but realistically, you know, it's really mind-blowing. And this is actually one of, so like, I've said it throughout the week. I still think that the Jags are a team that is fraudulent. I still do think of them that way. And one of the reasons I think that is because you trade up to go get this guy, Travis Hunter, from the 5 spot to the 2 spot in the draft. You give up a first rounder in addition for next year to use this guy mostly on defense. It makes me question how they're running things. And Travis Hunter, there's just no secret, is the wide receiver 3 in snap count and routes run. I mean, it's really weird. So, like, they're not using him like I thought that they would. So, it's like, as I say, bottom line metrics, they matter. Now, Travis Hunter's a little bit of an outlier here because he does get work when he's in on offensive snaps, but it hasn't worked yet. So I'm inclined to keep him on my bench until I see something good. And I don't think that this week's one of those weeks. So, like, by default, it's really weird to say this because I don't view Carter as this, like, spectacular play. But by default, I got to play Michael Carter. Like, it's not really debatable for me because Michael Carter, we just went through the matchup. It's a good one versus the Tennessee Titans. And like I said, like, he's going to get work. He will get work. It's just a matter of how much. And it does feel, it feels scary, I guess is the good word for it, to put Michael Carter in when you haven't seen him do anything this year. But, I mean, all Travis Hunter has attached to him right now is draft capital. He doesn't have any performance. I mean, even Chase Brown, right? Chase Brown's a great guy to juxtapose with Travis Hunter because Travis Hunter and Chase Brown both have draft capital attached to them. But Chase Brown is a guy that I feel better about than Hunter because Chase Brown is getting the work. Hunter's just not. I mean, Hunter's just not on the field enough. And there's just no way they're practicing him at wide receiver all week. So, yeah, I'll go with Michael Carter pretty easily. I have Travis Hunter in one redraft league, and I considered briefly today actually dropping him, but I decided to not do that because I think that someone else would pick him up. And that's the only reason I don't want to drop him. I still feel like he has some trade value, but I mean, I was close. Like, we're at that point where I'm starting to consider that because, again, it's just not there yet. Appreciate the super chat. Brian03, appreciate the super chat. Drop Juwan or Andrews for running back, Miller, Gordon, or Tucker? You know, it's interesting because I actually, ironically, am dealing with the same exact situation in one of my redraft leagues. I hate to even admit this, but again, I like to give you guys personal context into my decision making because I would never tell you guys to make a move that I would not make. So this league that I'm in, that I have both Andrews and Juwan Jennings, I don't like to hold two quarterbacks, but I was not at the draft when that draft happened, so I got auto-drafted. And I hate to admit that because I hate auto-drafting, and I never would encourage that for anybody else to do. But I was just wrapped up with videos and other stuff, so I wasn't able to make it to that draft. So I ended up picking Juwan Jennings off the waiver wire because I didn't want Mark Andrews. Like, I picked him up before the season even started. Now it's worked out, but obviously lately, particularly this past week, it did not work out for Juwan Johnson. So, you know, it was like obviously a little bit concerning to see the lack of involvement, especially when we had gotten such better production. And Mark Andrews is like this firecracker, right? Like he just like pops off in that week 3 game versus the Detroit Lions. But I mean, realistically, like I have trouble seeing much upside for Andrews that's beyond this. Like, Cooper Rush is not going to push the ball down the field like Lamar would. So I struggle to see the upside. But, you know, the problem with Andrews is that if you dropped him, someone will pick him up. Because Lamar, it's not a season ender. Lamar will be back. So out of chess moves, I guess, for lack of a better term, I would drop Juwan Johnson before I dropped Mark Andrews because I know that someone will pick him up. I know that someone will pick him up. So, yeah, you meant Juwan Johnson. Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. Did I say Juwan Jennings at one point? I'm thinking of Juwan Johnson. I would drop Juwan Johnson before I dropped Andrews because he just doesn't have the draft capital attached to him, and he doesn't have the big name. So realistically, I feel like you may not get him back either, but if you wanted him back in theory, it's going to be easier to trade for him back than it will be for Andrews. So if you need a running back desperately, and I don't like to host two tight ends in my leagues, the guy that I would pick up out of this league is Sean Tucker. I've seen Kendre Miller get some steam lately, and I think that there's something there to it. But at the same time, man, like, I just don't really buy that Kendre Miller is some really good player. I don't. Like, I think the Bills are a beatable matchup, and I think Kendre Miller for the majority of his career has just been a bum. So I struggle to get on board with the Kendre Miller hype. That crowd I don't resonate with that crowd quite yet. I need to see more of him playing at a decent level, which he did last week. But to me, I think the real guy is Sean Tucker because, again, like this Bucky Irving injury, it could very well be an IR situation. We just don't know enough yet. So Sean Tucker, he's going to be involved. Like, he will get involved. And when that happens, I want in on an option in that matchup. So I would personally drop, if this was my team, I would drop Juwan Johnson for Sean Tucker. I appreciate the super chat, Brian. It's always good to see you in here. Michael View, appreciate the super chat. Good to see you in here tonight. Would you trade Rachaad for Monty? And I see you meant Monty for Rachaad. That's an interesting question. On the surface, it sounds bad, but obviously, again, I mean, we keep talking about this Bucky Irving situation because we just don't know how much time he's going to miss. I mean, it's really not inconceivable whatsoever, and people need to understand this. Like, we didn't know yesterday that Trey Benson was going to the IR. I mean, I didn't really – like, I remember after the game last week, when I went live, I was talking about Trey Benson, and someone in the chat said that he was injured, and I didn't see anything on it. So I was like, maybe this is not real. but clearly it was. And so my point in saying that is to say that these injuries, things move fast. So, like, we don't know what's going to happen with Bucky Irving. I mean, he's getting multiple opinions from different doctors, apparently, and he doesn't have an answer yet from any of them. So, considering the fact that he was in a walking boot and crutches today, it's scary. I mean, it's a sketchy situation. So, Rachaad White, in theory, could really step in. My thing with Monty is that, last week, obviously it didn't work out. And I spent a lot of the offseason telling people to not draft him. And I stand by that because I don't think that – I just don't think he's the same player. And if you look at, like, all of his weeks, excluding that game against the Baltimore Ravens, there's not much upside there. That being said, I do think that I'd rather hang on to Dave Montgomery personally because Monty is a guy that is on a really good offense. He's got the bigger name, and he's got more of a weekly role with the starting guy, the lead guy, Jahmyr Gibbs. So, Gibbs, obviously, if he stays healthy, is going to continue to lead the backfield. But Monty will continue to be involved. Rachaad White is just not involved on a weekly basis enough for me to realistically validate sending him away for a guy that, to trade for him in exchange for a guy that realistically is just on the field a lot more. So I'll hold off on doing that. I don't think that one's worth it, to be honest with you. Appreciate the super chat. Cody Wayner, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. And good to see you in here, by the way. Really quick, just so I don't forget this, I will not be live immediately after the game tomorrow night. I have to pick up my wife from the airport, so you won't see me right after the game. Probably will be live after the game, but it might be later. So I'll try to shoot for a live stream later tomorrow night after the game. But I will be picking up my wife from the airport. Wide receiver and flex, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Luke McCaffrey, unless you have any other waiver claim ideas. In 12-team league like Turpin or Franklin. Wide receiver and flex. Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Luke McCaffrey. It's actually interesting. So I actually don't think any of those options are bad. I really don't. I think that all of those options are pretty decent. I think that all these options are fine. I think that Luke McCaffrey is a very, very under-discussed player. And I actually drafted not a bunch of McCaffrey, but I drafted a decent amount of him in best ball leagues because I just saw a second-year leap from him. I will say that we're not at that point where the involvement is there enough yet for me to say he's this really good sleeper guy over someone like Franklin. To me, Troy Franklin could be a good play this week. I mean, I've spent a lot of time this week talking about my issues with Sutton this week versus the Philadelphia Eagles because he's going to draw Quinyon Mitchell. And Quinyon Mitchell is rapidly entering that cornerback list of corners that I like to avoid in fantasy football, like Pat Surtain, Derek Stingley, Trent McDuffie. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell is joining that group of guys. So, I'm not really comfortable with playing Sutton, and I think that Franklin realistically could be a legitimate play this week. So, it's not that I don't like Luke McCaffrey, but I would drop him before one of these two Giants receivers because if what we saw with Jackson Dart was real, and he's a good quarterback, then you want a wide receiver attached to them. And the bottom line is you don't know which one it will be yet. So I would rather personally drop McCaffrey for Troy Franklin. Turpin is also a sleeper guy. And I think that he's involved enough to where it's kind of a Luke McCaffrey situation. But it's not important enough of a role like Troy Franklin, who legitimately is the wide receiver 2 in that offense and can give you 25-plus point games. But it feels different than getting it from Kevontae Turpin or Luke McCaffrey, because those two guys don't have that upside for number one. And number two, they just don't see a role that's big enough on a weekly basis. And Luke McCaffrey's got plenty of opportunity right now. So maybe it changes with Jaden Daniels back, but I'll stick with my original idea, which is that I would pick up Franklin and drop McCaffrey. Now, when it comes to this week, I will personally play Franklin at that wide receiver spot. And my flex, I'm going to play Wan'Dale this week. I think that, with Jackson Dart, this is a guy that can push the ball down the field more than Russ could, which would favor Darius Slayton. But I still think that Wan'Dale is going to have a very important role in this offense, because he will become, I think, more of a possession receiver and take, not that he's going to fill the shoes of Malik Neighbors. Nobody can do that, obviously, and definitely not Wan'Dale. But, they need to get those first downs from somebody. I think Wan'Dale becomes that more than Slayton does. I think Slayton is more of a downfield threat. So that's my initial take on the Giants wide receivers. I prefer Wan'Dale for fantasy, but that could quickly change. We'll have to see how that goes. But if it's me, I'm going to play Wan'Dale at one of those spots along with Troy Franklin. Appreciate the super chat. Always good to see you in here, Cody. Patrick, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Oh, man. Got some allergies tonight. Feel like I'm going to sneeze. I knew that was coming. All right. So here we go. Patrick, appreciate the super chat. Trade Woody and Keon for Kraft. 3-1 PPR running backs are Gibbs, Warren, Scadaboo, RJ, Woody, and Tootin. Wide receivers are CD, BTJ, Sutton, Egbuka, Coleman, Ayamaner, and tight end is Juwan. So trade Woody and Keon for Tucker Kraft. Anytime you trade players for tight ends, it gets messy, because I don't think that there's many tight ends that are worth trading for. I go through this once a year, and it's not my most popular video during the offseason, but it's an important one. I go through tight ends, and I basically am trying to find, the Jonnu Smith of last year, which, by the way, the research I did involved Jonnu Smith from last year, and it worked, obviously. So, but my point in bringing that up is that in that video, I talk about tight ends, and really I just kind of break down the differences between tight ends and fantasy. And once you get past that top 3, sometimes top 6 group of guys, it's really just a bunch of jumbled guys that you could play off the waiver wire. And so the question really becomes is Tucker Kraft in that upper tier of tight end options, or is he in that tier that's interchangeable? Because in order for me to trade for a tight end, I need to see clear chance of that upside. Now, Tucker Kraft, I will definitely admit, Tucker Kraft definitely has a chance to be one of those top tier guys. But am I willing to trade Woody for him in particular? Because Woody, to me, is a legitimate breakout potentially guy. That's tough, man. I at the same time, I don't think that this Houston running back room is going to become a treasure trove all of a sudden. And I don't think they're going to put, just kick Chubb to the curb. I do think he will still be involved. So I do wonder about Woody. And Keon Coleman clearly is just not working. So, it's not a bad idea on the surface. I think I would do it. Yeah, I think I would. It's not that, again, Juwan Johnson's fine. He is a fine tight end, and I think he will continue to be fine. But if I can get the upside of Kraft in an offense that I do believe is really good, and I think that Tucker Kraft could be one of those guys at the top of the position, I think I'll take that chance. Yeah, I think I would do that trade. Appreciate the super chat. I will be right back. I'm going to run to the bathroom really quick, and then I'll come back and answer some more questions. All right. Let's get back into it. Tariq Washington, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat and your patience. 13-team PPR, full PPR, 2 flex. Wide receiver just traded Ladd for A.J. Brown. Have Puka, Nico, Egbuka, and running backs are Pacheco, Hill, Blue, Brian Robinson. Tight end Warren, Kraft, and Waller. QB Dart, May, and Stroud. Any trades for better running backs or wait? Okay, so a 13-team league is a little bit bigger than the traditional 12-team league. So that does factor in, like, something that I always say I don't like to do, which is that I don't like to have multiple quarterbacks or tight ends in my roster. I just don't like to do that because it takes away from other positions that you could realistically play. When you're looking at onesie positions, there are very few tight ends that should, that there are very few instances where only if you have like 2 really good tight ends that you should consider putting them in your lineup. Now, it becomes more likely that you would do that, especially with these injuries that have been happening. So it's not inconceivable at this point that, like, for example, Warren and Kraft can both go in your lineup. But I will say this, like, especially with these quarterbacks, you should not have that amount of quarterbacks. Now, Stroud in particular is someone that I can't imagine is rostered in most leagues. And the reason I bring that up is because my intuition is that you're holding Stroud for a reason, which is that your league values quarterbacks very highly. It doesn't look like a 2 quarterback league. You said it was a 2 flex league. So that indicates to me that your league values quarterbacks really highly. And there's probably not that many on the wire. Because Stroud, he shouldn't be rostered. I get it, the stack upside with Nico, but it's just not worth it. So I feel like, I mean, you've got Drake May, who really is becoming like a really good fantasy quarterback. I think I saw a trade yesterday in one of my dynasty leagues. Someone picked up Jackson Dart off the waiver wire. It was in the really small bench league. And they flipped him for Patrick Mahomes. Like, there was draft capital involved in it, but he flipped him for Patrick Mahomes. So my point of bringing that to the table is that the hype on this is real. So you can realistically, like, really maximize your potential for a payout right now with Jackson Dart. So for me personally, like, you're trying to get a better running back. I would personally put together a package of, like, a Jackson Dart and get a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, for example. Maybe throw him together with, like, Tucker Kraft and really try to go for an upgrade. Like, I think that's the move for me. Like, that's a move I would try to get somebody like, with Tucker Kraft and Jackson Dart. Both those guys are starting quarterback and tight end potentially. And then Pacheco is just a depth piece for somebody. For me, I think I would try to go after somebody like, let's look at running backs right now. Let's go through some running backs. Shoot for the stars. See if you can get a guy like James Cook, but you probably won't. I would try to get Travis Etienne out of that. I would try to get Javonte out of that. I would try to get Achane out of that. You probably won't get Achane, but I think you could get Javonte. I think you could get Etienne. I would try to get maybe J.K. Dobbins. Probably less likely. I would try to get Cam Scatterboo. I would try to get Kyron. Like, there's a couple different options here that you could realistically go after that I think would be good for your team. So I would personally try to do that. Like, that's a move I would absolutely try to make. So, yeah, for me personally, like, I would grab those 3 guys in particular, Jackson Dart, Tucker Kraft, and Isaiah Pacheco, and try to upgrade on a running back. And maybe you throw in another, like, piece like Troy Franklin or something like that to get as another wide receiver. But you already have pretty solid wide receiver room. So that's the immediate move I would make. Appreciate the super chat. Jeremy Torres, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Start one defense: Browns, Bills, Texans, Saints, Kansas City, or the Giants. Well, I think the easiest answer for me is that, listen, when it comes to my defense rankings on a weekly basis, that is in order always of who I would prefer to play. So, I would definitely go to my defense video for, I guess, like further confirmation. But of course, like you asked me the question, I will answer it, which is that the defense this week, like realistically, the Texans defense is so good. And Baltimore, I do think, does have a chance to beat them, but I can't see them putting up monstrous amounts of points. And the Browns, on the other hand, they're in this matchup versus Minnesota where it's a really low over-under. I looked at Vegas today. I think it's like 35. I mean, that's like super freaking low. Considering their quarterback struggles, I don't know how the Browns aren't a good play. They just can't move the ball very much. So the Browns defense, ironically, is the defense that I have ranked higher between them and the Texans. But that being said, like I think the Texans still are a good play. So I'll leave it to you. It's a gut call. They're close enough in my rankings to where it is a gut call. But I will tell you this, I will definitely go with the Browns over the Texans because a lot of it has to do with matchup. And I get it, Lamar's not there. I really don't think that team's as bad as people think. Like people are really fading the Ravens even with Lamar, so you take him out. Like Cooper Rush, everybody thinks they're going to be terrible. I don't see it that way. I really don't. Like, I think they could win this week. I checked Vegas. I think they've got the Texans as like 1-point favorites. I mean, realistically, they could easily win that game. So I'll go with the Browns here. That's my personal, but I will tell you they're very close to my rankings, so it is a gut call if you don't want to play the Browns, which I can understand for sure. I mean, I just played the Titans defense, for example, in a couple of my leagues, and it backfired big time. So, like, it's generally not the best idea to play a defense on a bad team, but this week I will. Appreciate the super chat. Braden Jones, appreciate the super chat. Do I start Kendre Miller or Michael Carter? So here we go with the Kendre Miller stuff. And listen, like I said, I'm just not understanding the Kendre Miller crowd as much. I saw someone mention that like Alvin Kamara could get moved. I mean, they may do it. I don't know. I did see, I guess the Chiefs are like predicted to get it. That means nothing. I mean, trade rumors are usually, there's truth to them. But I don't know if I've seen anything on the rumor mill about a trade for Alvin Kamara. It's mostly just like, this is just content. Like, all of this is just content to get eyeballs on, like, oh, yeah, people think it's a good idea for the Saints to move off of him. There's a difference between reporters like Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport reporting on a potential trade, for example, of Tyreek Hill before the injury and Travis Etienne or Tank Bigsby basically leading into the season. And, of course, one of them happened. Tank Bigsby went to Philly, and one of them probably would have happened with Tyreek Hill as well. But it didn't, obviously, and it won't now. There's a difference between that and some site that just puts up, like, look at this hot trade, that would make this team considerably be better. There's just a difference. I don't know if that makes sense, but like what I'm trying to say is like there's a difference between somebody like Andy Reid putting in a report to Adam Schefter like we're interested, and some Yahoo on some website just saying like, yeah, he's they could trade him and it'd be a great move. Yeah, of course it would be, but like that doesn't make any sense. So like all of that is to say that I think this Kendre Miller stuff is really overblown because unless Kamara is gone, I don't see enough from this offense, number one, and from Kendra as a player historically, number two, for me to justify putting him in my lineup yet. Now, I get it. You're in a tight situation this week because your other option is Michael Carter, but I mean, Michael Carter to me is on an offense that needs him more than the Saints need Kendre Miller right now. So for me, yeah, I think that it's pretty simple, and I guess it's just going to be one of those that I'm slow to. If the Kamara trade happens, then good for all the people who have Kendre Miller, but until it does, man, I don't see much upside with Kendre on a weekly basis. Like, this could have been his peak very easily. I mean, he's done nothing throughout his entire career. Michael Carter actually he has some juice. So I'll go with Carter. Appreciate the super chat. Next up was Paul Thompson. Appreciate the super chat. 0-4, keep one Rice or Lamb. Barkley for Lamb and Swift. So you need to keep one of those players. And I agree. I would keep one of them, but since you're 0-4, you definitely need to make some moves. Like, you cannot just sit on your hands and not trade one of these players when neither of them are doing anything. Who do I want more? Obviously, CeeDee Lamb is the better fantasy player, all things considered. Like, he is a legitimate game changer between the two players. I think we're going to see Rachaad Rice become a game changer this year when he comes back. But it is more uncertain than CeeDee Lamb. I hate that I have to give one of them up, but if I did have to give one of them up, it would be Rachaad Rice. No question. I mean, Rachaad Rice, in theory, I guess, could come back sooner than CeeDee, but I think CeeDee, I've been saying this for weeks, he's a dog. I mean, CeeDee is a dog. Like, that guy could come back this week and it wouldn't shock me. You know, he probably won't, but, like, my point in saying that is I think CeeDee Lamb could come back pretty soon. So, like, I don't see myself moving off of CeeDee before I move off of Rachaad Rice. Like, I like Rachaad Rice a lot. That's a real gut tester for me. But realistically, like, if you could do a move like CeeDee Lamb and DeAndre Swift for Barkley, I mean, it would help your team. And you, like I said, you've got to win. You've got to win some games. The way I'll justify this one, because I actually would do this deal. And the way I'll justify it is by saying that I think that the gap between CeeDee and Rachaad Rice isn't as big as a lot of people think. And so, therefore, I'm inclined to make a move today that builds my team right now, which it would, and it also keeps me good for the future, which if we were talking about CeeDee Lamb, or let's say that Tyreek Hill we didn't lose him for the season, and it was a very similar recovery timetable to CeeDee Lamb. Like, let's say Tyreek Hill was out for 3 to 4 weeks, right? Well, there's no way I would make this deal to send away CeeDee Lamb, because the tier drop between CeeDee and Tyreek at this point is way too big. But of course, like, Tyreek's out. The point in saying that was to draw a comparison between two players that were really far off my rankings versus, in your situation, Rachaad Rice and CeeDee Lamb for me, like, they're close enough to where I can justify sending away CeeDee Lamb to help my team today since you're 0-4. So that is a move that I would personally make. Appreciate the super chat. Before I answer the next question, just make sure to check out FS Roundup. All these stats we're going through, super handy and super free. I mean, it doesn't get more free than this. Just go in there and start looking at numbers. And then also go post a poll. Start, sit, poll. I will not get to all questions tonight. So if you don't get your question answered, go to FS Roundup, start a poll, start, sit polls, engage in other people's polls as well to help their teams out. It's completely free as well. And if you want a full team breakdown, that happens with a premium subscription. You also get access to my rankings, the waiver tool, and many other advanced features. Fantasy Forecast. Appreciate the super chat. Trade my JT Laporta Evans for his Bowers, Bucky, and ETN. Okay, so you're going to trade JT Laporta and Evans. for his Bowers, Bucky, and ETN. Okay, so the tight end situation here, Bowers has been a disappointment. Like, he hasn't been bad, and that's kind of the funny thing about it. I mean, it's not funny, but like, all things considered, Bowers has been a disappointment because of where people drafted him at, but he's not been bad. Like, Bowers has been okay. Now, I think this injury definitely is affecting him. I really do. Like, I think that if he wasn't injured, we would see better Brock Bowers, but there's no question, like, we just haven't seen enough. So it's hard for me to treat Bowers as this, like, immortal tight end like I did before in the pre-draft process and during the draft process. Like, I was advising everyone to go draft him. Well, as we sit here in week 5, like, I don't view him as this immortal tight end that can't be dealt. And Laporta, realistically, like, he's almost been as good as Bowers has. I mean, Laporta on a weekly basis is not as involved, but he's on an offense that's just better, number one. So his upside is just as high, realistically, right now as Bowers. And now, do I think that his upside is that high all year? Like, if Brock Bowers can get healthy, right? Do I think that Laporta's upside is as high as Bowers? Absolutely not. There will come a point where Brock Bowers is, if he can get healthy, there will come a point where Brock Bowers will be an undisputed better option than Sam Laporta. But right now, it's not inconceivable that for the foreseeable future that these two guys are close enough to where a deal like this is not as big of a problem. Because, like, on top of that, you're going to get ETN, who is an immediate start for your team and fills a void probably. And then Bucky, you're going to get him when Evans is hurt too. Now, the problem obviously is you've got Jonathan Taylor in this trade. And right now, it makes very little sense for me to trade him, to be honest with you. Like, I guess there is still uncertainty in the fantasy community about Jonathan Taylor because of the fact that Jonathan Taylor is on this offense that for the past couple of years hasn't been good, and he has dealt with his fair share of injuries too. Knock on wood, it doesn't happen. But, it's not out of the possibilities that it happens again. But Jonathan Taylor, the way he's playing right now, man, I mean, this was a floor game for him. I mean, 14.6 fantasy points in a full PPR league. That was his floor. I mean, every week besides that, week 1, I guess, was his floor. 12.9 fantasy points. But, I mean, the upside, 29.5 points against the Denver defense. 32.8 versus the Titans. Like, he's going to play the Titans again this year. And he's also got to play the Jags, who he historically does really well against. It's so hard for me to justify sending away JT when the best running back you're going to get in return may be out for extended time. And I get it, you're sending away Evans in this deal, but realistically, like, JT is, to me, a little bit of an immovable piece. Everybody has a price, right? Like, everybody can be bought, and I feel that way about Jonathan Taylor. This is not one of those situations, though. Like, for me, personally, I think that if you were getting, instead of Bucky, if you were getting, like, James Cook, I'd probably feel better about this deal because, again, getting Travis Etienne in the deal as well as Brock Bowers, it feels like a really solid move, but it's just not comfortable when the best asset in here, Bucky Irving, is injured and, again, could very easily be an IR situation. I mean, this really, really could be. So I'm uncomfortable doing that. I'll probably not do that trade. Appreciate the super chat. Sab92, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Good to see you in here as well. Trade Egbuka, Chase Brown for AJ and Achane. Ooh, that's tough. I mean, there's two players who are vastly underperforming right now in this trade. And I don't need to say who they are, but obviously it's AJ Brown and Chase Brown. It's been a rough season for the Browns, man. And I'm not talking about the Cleveland Browns. I'm talking about the A.J. Browns, the Chase Browns. It's been a rough year. And for Chase Brown, it's hard to see it get much better. With A.J. Brown, the funny thing about A.J. Brown is that, yes, it's kind of hard to see it get better, but at the same time, it's not as hard as Chase Brown. Because the thing with A.J. is that, he's still getting work. He had 8 targets in week 4. Now, the one thing that won't change is that A.J. Brown, unless he gets, a deep shot, the targets aren't that valuable with Jalen Hurts. Now, I said earlier in the week, Devonta Smith was a buy low candidate. Realistically, I think that A.J. Brown is as well, because I think that he's going to get moved. I think he will get traded at some point. And I do, at that point, really consider him to be a really good asset if he does get moved. So I don't think of this as I don't think of A.J. Brown and Chase Brown being an equal swap. I would take A.J. Brown all day. So it really comes down to Egbuka for Achane. And in that scenario, I probably would do that because I've been telling people for weeks now, if you're going to trade Egbuka, you need to value him properly. And I do think you're valuing him properly by doing this move because Achane is a guy that's worth it. Achane, I get it. It has not been great so far. And I don't think the Dolphins' offense is ever going to be really I think that the days where they had prime Tyreek Hill and they were putting up 40 points in the month of September, I think those days are over, especially as the season gets colder and the Dolphins don't play as well. But losing Tyreek Hill is going to make Achane so much more important in the passing game. I mean, he's already important in the running game, but his upside in the passing game, it's about to go through the roof, man. And Egbuka, again, as much as I love him, there is a price for everybody. And Egbuka is a guy that realistically, it gets tricky when Mike Evans comes back and we've got Chris Godwin there. So there is a price, and I do think we found it. This is a move I would make. Appreciate the super chat. Really quick, before I get to the next super chat, I see a question. So no kicker rankings this week? Of course they're going to be out. You got to get familiar with my channel, man. I post kicker rankings every Thursday morning, so stay tuned. Of course, tomorrow, kicker rankings will be out. Just be patient. Mata Leo, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Would you trade Kyron for Jamar Chase? Whew. No, I wouldn't. I don't even have to think about it too much. There is a very, very small number of guys that I think, there's a big pool of guys, obviously, that I would trade for Jamar Chase. But realistically, the likelihood of getting a deal done with Jamar is including a very few select group of guys. I think I'd be willing to trade a guy like Jamison Williams for Jamar Chase. Or I would be willing to trade a guy like Jalen Waddle for Jamar Chase, right? And I think those moves have the potential to go through. But Kyron, there's no freaking chance. Kyron Williams is a guy that this, to me, it is a moment where I just got to tell you, pump the brakes. Kyron, yes, has been disappointing, especially when you consider draft price. He's been mostly bad, but hang tight, man. I mean, Kyron Williams is a guy that is on a really good offense. He's getting the workload. Nothing is there to suggest that Kyron Williams is not a good fantasy asset. The efficiency's been there. He just is getting some touches taken away. So it's not I'm not sitting here and telling you that you can't move Kyron for anybody. But Jamar Chase is not one of those players. Like I said, the thing that makes Jamar so tricky is that he's clearly an elite player in the league, but you can't rely on him right now to be a consistent wide receiver plug and play. I mean, he's just not that guy. He dropped from one of the best at the position to a flex guy. That's where we are with him. And Kyron is a steady RB2. So there's no chance I'm doing that. Appreciate the super chat. Ismail, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Good to see you in here as well. 12-team, half PPR, Knicks, Purdy, London, Collins, T, Egbuka, Ferguson, Monty, Henderson, Mason, Zach Charbonnet, Benson on IR, and picked DeMercado up. I just got asked for Egbuka, and he sent Judkins and Addison to me. So your wide receivers are London, Collins, T. Higgins, and Egbuka. So if you lose Egbuka, your top three are going to be London, Collins, and T. So there's a huge drop-off from your wide receiver 2 to your wide receiver 3. Now, you would get Judkins in that trade, who I do think is a good back moving forward, and you do need some running back help compared to your wide receiver room. And Jordan Addison as well. Well, Jordan Addison, in theory, I guess would be your wide receiver 3 because he's a better option than T. Higgins. But it's not that big of a difference. Like, they both have quarterback issues this year. And the moment that J.J. McCarthy comes back, it could all fall apart in Minnesota. So, realistically, like, Jordan Addison to me is a little bit of a mirage right now. And that sounds bad, right? Because, like, Jordan Addison is a player that I do think is really, really good. Like, I think he's a top-tier wide receiver 2 in the NFL. And I would like him on my fantasy team if he had Kirk Cousins or if he had Darnold still. But, you know, Jordan Addison being that they're going to go back to J.J. McCarthy. Like, it will happen. It's not that big of a difference between him and T. Like, it really is not. So, it's tough. Because on one hand, I do like the idea of getting Jordan Addison to upgrade. But at the same time, again, we need to be pricing Egbuka correctly. Let's take out Addison really quick. Because if you took draft capital away from the equation, Jordan Addison and T. Higgins, they're both borderline rosterable guys. Now, it sounds crazy to say that after the week that Addison just had in fantasy. But you're going to see bad games from Addison. It's going to happen. So realistically, like, if you took out draft capital, those guys are borderline waiver wire guys at this point. T. Higgins especially. So take out those guys and just line up Judkins with Egbuka. Now, Egbuka, I just went through, like, there's concern about workload when Mike gets back. But realistically, my concerns with Judkins' long season are still the same, which is that I don't see how you can throw out the idea that Judkins gets a suspension. On top of that, all of this quarterback turmoil, it's going to continue throughout the year. I guarantee you, Daniel, that Dylan Gabriel will not finish the season as the Browns' starting quarterback. Like, they will try to go back to Flacco. Maybe they'll try to go to Shador. Like, it's going to be a revolving door at quarterback, and I got a news flash for people. You don't want pieces in a quarterback carousel. You don't. Now, Judkins looks fantastic, and I've admitted that I was, like, I guess wrong on him to a certain extent because he does look great in a bad offense, but realistically, like, Egbuka is just what he's establishing right now. I just always go back to this. This is real. I mean, he's establishing a role that can't be taken away from him. If Egbuka, during the time that there was no Godwin and there was no Mike, wasn't very good, and he was just filling in, like Sterling Shepard, right? Like, Sterling Shepard doesn't have first-round draft capital to him, and he's not the player that Egbuka is. So, realistically, like, the moment that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin come back, they're going to push Sterling Shepard to the curb. I just don't see that being the case for Egbuka. Like, he's carving out a role in this offense that can't be taken away from him. So I would not do this trade. I would not do it. Appreciate the super chat. Joe Estrada, appreciate the super chat. PPR traded CMC for Achane and CD Lamb. Was I fleeced? No, you weren't fleeced. No, not at all. Would I have done the move? Maybe. Let me work through to my mind. But you definitely didn't get fleeced. Like, CMC is great, and the workload is there. But I do have concerns about CMC to a point because he hasn't looked – I covered this today on my running back rankings. Like, he hasn't looked good, from an efficiency standpoint. Like all year running the ball, he's actually averaging less than 3.5 yards a carry. That's like a career worst for Christian McCaffrey. Now, of course, the volume that he's getting through the passing game, and he's still a dominant pass catching back, like that's not going to go away unless he gets injured. But like the guy's healthy right now by all accounts, and he's not running the ball that well. So it is kind of like, I wonder about McCaffrey. Like, has he slowed down a little bit? But like, obviously, like from a fantasy perspective, he's really good still. But I just get worried. Like this situation with San Francisco and the amount of injuries they have, it's concerning, very concerning. So you definitely didn't get fleeced because you're getting Achane in return, who is McCaffrey light-ish. Like not even light. Like he's light-ish. And CeeDee Lamb, who's going to return and provide so much value for your team. No, you definitely didn't get fleeced on this. I'm still debating in my head whether I would actually do this or not. I probably would do this because I think both players are worth it. But I'm not for sure on if I would do it. I would definitely need to sleep on it. But you certainly did not get fleeced in this one. Appreciate the super chat. Fantasy Forecast, appreciate the super chat. Herb, Bucky, Benson, Judkins, Amari, White, Javonte, Amon-Ra, Sutton, QJ, AJ Brown, Diggs, Ferg, Dak. Moves to make. Start, sit, full PPR, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. So let's go through the running backs first. Bucky, Benson, Judkins, Amari, White, Javonte. I would definitely play Javonte. I would play Benson if you could play him, but you can't. So I would definitely play Judkins. Really easy. I would play Judkins over Trey Benson because Judkins just looks really good. But, I mean, Benson isn't a factor. So, obviously, Benson goes to your IR, and you can't trade him right now. Like, realistically, nobody wants him. Like, he's going to people's IRs. And I saw earlier today that his earliest return is like week 10. Like it's not a good situation. So you can't trade him right now. Best thing you could do is put him on your IR. This week for sure it's going to be Javonte and Judkins. And then your wide receivers, Amon-Ra clearly is going to go in. And I would personally play QJ over Sutton as my second wide receiver. So Amon-Ra, QJ are my wide receivers out of this one. Your flex, it comes down to, realistically, your flex comes down to Rachaad White and Courtland Sutton. Because I would play Rachaad White over AJ Brown and Diggs. You are better off going with Sutton because I think that Rachaad White will get opportunities taken away by Sean Tucker. Like, that's been historically what they've done. Like, last year, when Bucky Irving missed time, they had Sean Tucker very involved. So, Sean Tucker will be involved. And when Rachaad White is missed time, same deal. Like, they will get Sean Tucker involved. So, he will have stuff taken away from him. With Sutton, even though I don't think it's going to be the greatest week from him, and I think there's a chance that he disappears, I can't realistically tell you that I would play Rachaad White over him because I wouldn't. Like, Sutton still is a good wide receiver. He is a wide receiver 1, and he can get in the end zone at any time. So, like, maybe there's a broken play, and he gets in. That, to me, is just as likely as Rachaad White handling enough work to be a really solid play this week. So, like, I would play Sutton over him. Moves for the future, I think that your running backs are good when everyone's healthy. Like, your running back room is really solid when everyone's healthy. Your wide receivers, to me, probably a bigger concern because I just think that you're outside of, like, your top 2, Sutton and QJ. I'm worried about. I don't think Diggs, like what we saw, is that big of a deal. I really don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he becomes their wide receiver 1. I just don't trust it. And then with AJ Brown, I mean, that's a guy that, again, Could be good, could not be. I'm willing to shop AJ Brown to see if anybody else has interest. And again, you don't want to undersell AJ Brown right now because I do think there's a little bit of a buy low element to him if he gets traded. But if he's on Philly all year, I don't really want AJ Brown. So I'm willing to field offers for him. I'm willing to explore offers for him as well. I'm willing to throw in Diggs as a package player off a good week. And I'm also willing to move off of like Amari DiMercato, for example, for someone who's really desperate at running back. So maybe one of the moves you can make, like potentially, is like a package deal. Amari DiMercato, AJ Brown, and Diggs for, a really big wide receiver upgrade, right? Like you could maybe try to get somebody like, maybe you could try to get, let's go through a couple of guys. So let's go ahead and hide this. Maybe you could try to get Rachaad Rice. Maybe you could try to get CeeDee Lamb. If you're in good position, maybe you could try to get Egbuka to see if someone's undervaluing him. Maybe you could try to get Debo if someone's undervaluing him. Roma Dunze, maybe if someone's undervaluing him. Devontae Adams. Brian Thomas Jr. Michael Pittman Jr. Like, there's a couple of moves I would make here. So, yeah, those are probably the moves that I would try to make. Appreciate the super chat. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for the night. I'm a little tired, so appreciate everyone being here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel on your way out, show your support. And if you want to go the extra mile and really support the channel and support me and what we're doing on FS Roundup, we're like a month old, and our site is doing really well. And I think you guys are enjoying it, but two things. I've got some, if you have anything to add on the site, let me know. Like, we want to expand to IDP. We're expanding to, like, we're going to have other sports, like when basketball turns up, that's going to be a thing. Hockey is going to be a thing as well on the site. Every sport will be on the site. So that's going to be coming. We've got the link up feature right here. Again, you can hook up your team. This is actually one of my redraft leagues right here. You can kind of see Christian McCaffrey, my RB1, Brian Thomas Jr., sadly, my wide receiver 1, Jalen Hurts, my quarterback, Travion Henderson, Marvin, Jalen Waddle. Like, you can hook up your league to the site. Start sit polls are entirely free. Go start one. Get the community's opinion. Like I said, I can't realistically answer everyone's question. So it's definitely good to get the community's opinion and go help out other people as well with their start sit decisions. All these stats that we went through tonight is free as well, but you can get my rankings, full top 200 for on a weekly basis, depending on bye weeks, and use the waiver tool. All that is premium subscription. So love you guys. Thanks for being in here. Like the video, subscribe, check out FS Roundup on your way out, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on the Kicker Rankings. Peace out.